Doing pretty well. How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Good. Hi, Dinesh.
Oh, hi there. I'm just setting up the YouTube stream, and in the meanwhile, I'll also share my screen with you today. Alrighty, hopefully you can see my screen now.
I can see it.
Okay, great. So in today's session, Bailey and I are just going to answer any questions that you may have about the TOEFL. And before we get started, we'll just start off by introducing ourselves. So my name is Siley, and I'm the head of TOEFL here at E2 Language. I teach a bunch of live classes. I make sure all the assessments are marked on time, and you get all that amazing feedback from our amazing teachers. And Bailey is a life class teacher as well, and she does quite a lot of things here at E2. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do with us, Bailey?
Yeah, so I'm one of the expert tutors here. So I do some occasionally one-on-one tutoring. I teach some of the live classes, and I do some of the marking that Saley, sorry, make sure that we get in on time.
All right, great. And also, Bailey has been an ex-TOEFL examiner, isn't that right?
Yes, yep, I marked them for the official TOEFL. So yeah, I did that for almost 8 years. So I definitely know that side of it.
All right, so feel free to ask her questions about how your responses are marked and what the examiners are looking out for. TOEFL examiner, isn't that right? Alrighty, so let's look at the reading section first. We'll look at each of the 4 sections and tackle questions related to those. So we'll start off with our reading section. So let's give you a quick overview. So the reading section is either 54 or 72 minutes long, and this depends on how many passages you get. So you either get 3 or 4 passages, and they're pretty long. They're all academic, and they're around 700 words long. And each passage is followed by 10 questions each. So in all, you can either get 30 questions or 40 questions. And there are also, in addition to these passages and questions, there are also different types of questions that they ask you. So there are 10 different types of questions that they'll ask you in the test. And that's what we do in our live classes. We prepare you for these types of questions. We sort of show you what the examiner, or what the item writers, what we call them, the people who write these questions, what are the certain techniques that they use to sort of get you to choose the wrong answer. So we sort of explain to you why the other answer options are wrong and why the correct one is the correct answer option. Anything you would like to add to that, Bailey?
I don't think so, not yet. That's pretty thorough.
Okay, so we'll take questions on the reading section now. So if you have any questions, and if you're with us on Zoom, you can just pop them in the chat box. And if you're on YouTube, you can put it in the chat, the live chat.
We do have a few questions there. Let's see, so we're on reading. We have a few kind of general questions. Just I have issues with the reading. How can I improve my reading score?
So that's the thing, right? You kind of have to know what you're going to expect in the test. And if you know what these different question types are, it's a little bit easier to sort of try and figure out what the correct answer is, because then you know what these questions are looking for. So like certain questions, they're trying to test if you've understood sort of like the main idea or like the central theme of the entire passage. Some are looking for details where you have to sort of find certain details in the passage. Others are a little more complex, so they sort of expect you to read between the lines. What that means is they expect you to understand what is not said directly, but which is implied using certain words and phrases, or just the tone of a passage, how that influences the meaning that's being conveyed. So all of these little things, very hard to like sort of tell you just, how you can improve your score. So what we recommend is you join e2language.com. I might as well share the screen with you. So if you log into e2language.com and go into the TOEFL course, you will be able to see all the different types of questions, not just in the reading section, but also in the listening, speaking, and writing sections. So these are all the different question types that I was referring to. And each of these tabs contains a couple of videos, just sort of showing you what to expect, what you'll see on your screen on test day, what method you can use, and then a few practice questions, just so you can get a hang of this type of question. And we do that for all the other question types. And we also go through this in detail in our live classes. So our live classes are 50 to 60-minute long sessions where we look at 2 or 3 of these question types. And we sort of go through a method, we do some skill building, a lot of practice together. So you get used to looking at these questions over and over again, and you kind of understand how to answer them on test day.
Reading classes are on Mondays, right?
Yes, that's right. And they're free for a limited time only, so make sure take advantage of that.
Definitely.
You can register for these classes through the calendar right here. So we only look at one section each day. We don't want to overwhelm you. Do you have any other questions?
Let's see, what if I get lost during the reading?
Ooh, I think an advantage of the TOEFL is that most of the times they'll show you which part of the passage they're referring to. So let me bring that up again.
Yeah, there's kind of an arrow that like points to the section. So that really helps. And if one just piece of advice I would have is if you get kind of lost or muddled up, just breathe, take a second and reread it. So sometimes we all get a bit too stressed, and when we're reading, we kind of lose our place or skip over things. So just kind of calm yourself down and allow yourself the time to reread it. Don't get too stressed.
Yeah, exactly. So for most of the questions, they'll either point out the sentence, the words, or like Bailey said, the paragraph that the answer is in. So you don't really have a lot of opportunity to get lost. But for some of these for some of these longer questions, yes, you can tend to feel a little lost. So like Bailey said, yeah, just take a deep breath. And by the time you reach those questions, you've probably read the entire passage because you've gone through all the other questions. So you shouldn't feel like you've lost your place or you're not understanding what you're reading, hopefully. So if you come along to your live classes and you do some practice, that won't happen on test day, we can assure you. Any other reading questions?
Yeah, just so everyone knows, if you have a question that isn't related to reading, we will get to it just once we're at the proper section. So don't worry, we're not ignoring you.
I guess that's probably it for reading. What do you reckon, Bailey?
Yeah, I think so. I think we've answered all the questions on here for reading.
Alrighty, let's move on to listening.
Oh, we just got one more, sorry. How do
Sorry.
you manage your time during the reading section?
That's a common one. Do you want to take that?
There is the timer that helps, right? In that one, there's the timer. So always pay attention to the timer. And yeah, just following in our live classes, we really go over the methods and the timing. giving yourself enough time is important, but yeah, do you have a more specific? Mine's a bit of a general answer.
No, but that's right. Like, you kind of need to know in advance how much time you're going to have. So as you can see, if you have 3 passages, you've got 54 minutes, 4 passages, 72 minutes. What that means is you have around 18 minutes per passage. And that is kind of like 18 minutes for those 10 questions. So you do want to make sure that you're not spending too much time on one passage, because then you're going to miss out on the other questions. Another thing about the reading passage is that you can always go back and change your answers, check them. So what I would recommend is try and give each passage sort of like 17, 16, 17 minutes. And if you're not able to find certain answers, just keep going. Don't get stuck on one question. And then you can, of course, come back and answer those questions. But if you end up spending too much time on one question, you might miss out on other questions that you could have gotten right. So just answer all the questions that you can and then come back to the difficult ones.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with that. Let's see. That be reading. I found that it's difficult for me to answer the main idea or any other paraphrasing questions. Do you have any tips?
Paraphrasing questions. I think it's really important to know your synonyms for that one.
Yeah.
And also, yeah, I think that's the main trap that they use. So they so all the incorrect answers will have the same exact words that are in that sentence. So for example, the let me bring that up. Sentence simplification question, this one right here, is the one that's testing your paraphrasing skills, especially. So in this one, all of the wrong answer options will have words exactly taken out of the passage, and the correct one will usually be using more synonyms or saying the same thing in a different way. So you kind of have to really focus on the meaning and read carefully for this question. So try and understand the meaning first before, looking for words or anything like that. And we do a lot of skill building activities around that, around synonyms and paraphrases in our life classes.
Yep. Would you answer negative factual questions straight away or leave them until the end?
Ooh, that's a good question. Mm, I think they can be particularly confusing because of that negative thing that they have. I think it's up to you. So if you feel like you get stuck up on the negative factual question and you're like always trying to figure out, wait, it's no, and that's what the question does a lot of times, to be honest. So of course you can leave it until the very end if you think it's going to slow you down. Because remember that all these questions are worth 1 point, except the prose summary and fill in a table question. And these 2 questions will always be the last question they'll ask you. So the 10th question for each passage will be either prose summary or fill in a table. And these are worth 2 to 3 points. So you don't want to miss these. And you definitely don't want to spend more time on this and miss out on these. So try and do these first and then come back to the negative factual information.
So probably whatever you are struggling the most with, whatever section, that should probably be left till the end.
Yeah.
Well, of course, do what has the most points first, and then do your strengths, the ones that you have done really well on. Make sure you get those points. And then if you miss out on some factual information points, if that's not your strong suit, then that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't have time, just guess if you're not sure, because there's no negative marking. So
Right.
don't leave any question unanswered. Just guess and keep going.
Yeah, Satya just said it's really time consuming, and exactly it is. So if you just have to guess rather than having all the time to go through it, then definitely it's worth guessing.
And to be honest, the more you practice, the easier it'll get. Like I know I keep saying this, but it is true.
It is.
Once you sort of see the pattern, the way these questions are made, you will know exactly where to look and what traps to avoid. So I think you should do enough practice before you actually take the test.
Yeah. And one more question was, do you read the entire passage before answering? And that depends on the section, really. Yeah, some of them we say to read the entire passage. Some we say just to read where they've pointed out. So that's again something to come to our live classes and see what we recommend for each section. I'd say. What do you agree?
Yeah, definitely. I think it's also different for different people, right? So what you could do is start off by reading the entire passage, making notes so that you know where all the information is. And that'll help you answer the prose summary or fill in a table question as well. And then you go through each paragraph answering those questions. This is if you're confident of your reading speed. So if you can read rather quickly, you can do that. If you feel like you struggle with reading quickly and understanding what the main idea is, then I would recommend doing the questions one by one. And then by the end, you've pretty much read everything. So that's another way to do it. So if you are somebody who likes to see like the big picture and then go into details, you can read the paragraph or you can read the entire passage first. If you're sort of like the trees over the forest kind of person, so you go through each paragraph and then you kind of get an idea for what the entire passage is about.
Yeah, you're right. It totally does depend. That's how I am. I prefer each section and then kind of having an overall idea instead of getting the overall idea and then trying to pick it out. So yeah, that's another thing. Practice and see
You
what's
won't know
better for you.
until you practice, right?
Yep. Okay, where can I find the extra material to practice the RC?
RC reading.
I'm guessing that's the reading section. Reading.
Okay. I think you've got a lot of material in here already. But if you've gone through all of these question types, you can also do some
They
mini.
might just be asking where this is, like where they find all of this.
Oh, you just go to e2language.com and just go into the TOEFL course. Can you type that into YouTube as well, Bailey? Please.
Yeah, just.
So it's www.e2language.com/course/TOEFL. Yeah, so you've got mini practice tests here, plus you've got mock tests. So in mock tests in here, reading mock tests. So in all, I'd say you've got, so these are kind of like an entire reading section. So you've got a lot of passages. If I were good at math, I would be able to tell you exactly how many, but you've got like 6 entire sections and you've got 6 full passages followed by 10 questions. So that's quite a lot of practice actually.
Yeah, there's a lot there. And if you do it in the, I'm forgetting what it's called right now, but where it's set up for you and kind of tells you the order, I think that's excellent. Where is it? What is
Mini
it called?
mock test?
No, the course material. It's in the course materials, but it's that thing on the right-hand side.
Oh, yeah, I think
The
those
study
are.
pathway, study pathway. There we go.
Oh, study pathway. That's right.
Yeah.
So if you want to go through everything one by one, you can do that in the study pathway right here. I've sort of filtered it to show only the tasks that I haven't completed. So as you can see, everything is sorted out for you. So you can quickly get through all of the different question types and do the practice as well. So you can definitely use that. Oh, so Dinesh says, I don't have an E2 language goal plan. Even if you are a free student, Dinesh, you should be able to access at least 1 or 2 of each of these questions. From each of these question types, you should be able to access at least 1 or 2 questions. And of course, if you want more practice, you can upgrade. All right, let's move on to the listening section now. So in the listening section, you've kind of got two types of audios. You've got your lectures and conversations, and you get anywhere between 41 to 47 minutes to get through the listening section. And you've got 2 or 3 conversations, and conversations are always followed by 5 questions, whereas lectures are followed by 6 questions, and you also have more lectures than conversations. So you've got 3 to 4 lectures. And in addition to that, just like the reading section, you've got 8 different question types. So you sort of need to know what are the different things that they're testing. Let me quickly show you what those question types are. So as you can see, if you click on the listening section right here, all the different listening question types will pop up. Do we have any listening questions?
I'm not seeing any listening questions. Please retype it if I'm missing it. So this one is kind of related. They're wondering how they could get a good speaking partner. Is there an app or anything like that?
Well, I don't really see why you would need a speaking partner for the TOEFL speaking section. I mean, if you want to just improve, your speaking in general, of course, you can meet people from different parts of the world who are learning English, just like you, in our live classes, and you can, of course, connect with them after. But if you want a teacher to tell you what you're doing right, what you're not doing right, what you can work on a little bit more, you can submit your speaking responses in the speaking assessment section. So these are very so we basically cater to test prep students. So these are modeled after the actual speaking tasks that you will see in the TOEFL. And what you need to do is record your answers exactly like you would in the TOEFL. And that's an inbuilt thing right here. So if you read the question, give yourself 15 seconds to prepare, 45 seconds to record. That'll happen automatically. Once you've recorded your response, you can listen to it, you can redo it if you want, and then you click submit. So when you click submit, it comes through to us, and our markers like Bailey will mark them for you, give you feedback based on what TOEFL examiners look for in your responses. So you can do that. And then if you feel like you still need a little more help, you can also book a one-on-one tutorial with one of our experts. So you just click on the tutorials tab and choose a day that suits you, a time. My internet's been acting very weird lately.
Yeah, if anyone else here is in Melbourne, I wonder if everyone's having some internet issues here, if it's just the two of us.
Yeah. And then you choose a time and it'll set you up with a TOEFL expert, and you can meet with them and ask them any questions that you have, or just talk to them and see how you go in terms of speaking. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, sorry, I kind of skipped ahead to speaking, but we were still on listening. So if you do have any listening questions, let us know. Dinesh said, sometimes the test taker isn't able to store the listening materials in their memory. So what are any tips to help with memorizing?
Oh, that's such a good question, Dinesh. This is why it's extremely important to work on your note-taking skills. I think Bailey can expand on that.
Yeah, note taking is something that we go over in every listening class because it is so important. Really, it's not only dividing up your notes, but it's really listening for the key ideas and tips on how to listen to those key ideas. Usually, the main point is repeated a few times. You can usually hear it towards the beginning, if not the very beginning. Yeah, those live classes will really expand on all of those tips. Again, dividing your notes and taking shorter notes, even learning shorthand can really help. So
Yeah.
you're right that it's too hard to memorize it all. You definitely need those notes.
Yeah, exactly. You do have to rely on your memory a little bit, but yeah, you do need your notes to be able to kind of remember everything that you're listening to, because the conversations are between 2 to 3 minutes long, and the lectures are even longer, so they're anywhere between 4 to 6 minutes long. Of course, you can't remember everything, and they're quite dense. There's a lot of information in them. So you're not expected to remember everything. In fact, when they are playing the lecture conversation for you, they will say, listen and take notes. So you are allowed to take notes, and you're in fact expected to take notes. That was an excellent question, Dinesh.
Yeah, definitely. Right. I don't see any other listening questions.
Our last call for any listening questions. Of course, if we miss it, you can ask us, any questions that you have at the end. We'll have some time for that. But now we'll move on to the speaking section. So in the real test, after the reading and the listening section, you've got a 10-minute break, and then you start with the speaking section. So the speaking section is approximately 17 minutes long. So I know last year it was about 20 minutes, but they shortened the test in 2019. Gosh, I can't believe 2020 is almost over.
Crazy, but good.
Yeah, definitely for good. So yeah, it's about 17 minutes now, only 4 tasks. One, you start off with an independent task, and then you do 3 integrated tasks. So task 1, they just ask you a question and you're supposed to respond to it. Task 2 and 3, you read something, you listen to something, and then you're asked a question based on that. And task 4 is basically summarizing a lecture. So you have to listen to a lecture and then summarize it. Answers will be recorded on the computer, like I just showed you in one of our practice tests. They'll show you a timer, and the recording will start automatically, and you can start speaking. Once the timer runs out, obviously it'll stop recording and the screen will change. Even though you are recording your answers, they are marked by human examiners. This is something I was talking to about with one of my colleagues. Bailey, do you happen to know if they use SpeechRadar, the marking algorithm?
So they use both as far as I know. Yeah, I'm pretty sure they use that. And then it's also confirmed by actual people as well. Speaking is mainly what I marked. So that was definitely done by humans. And it's at least 2 people, often a third person that confirms, so that we make sure that, or made, I made sure that everyone was getting a fair and accurate score.
So at least 2 human examiners plus the scoring software.
Right.
That's pretty thorough.
Yes. Yeah.
Do we have any questions about speaking? I know we already kind of tackled one.
Not seeing any others, but let me double check. Oh, that's a very good question. Will I get in trouble in speaking during the exam? I believe a nearby test taker might hinder another test taker's speaking performance. So no, you will not get in trouble. Definitely not. It's funny from my perspective. So when I'm marking, I can often hear a few people speaking at once. So definitely get close to the microphone. Don't be crazy loud, but don't whisper. You want to be, speaking in your normal speaking voice. And I believe, don't they give you headphones?
Yeah.
Yeah, they give you headphones so that you hopefully don't hear the other speakers. It kind of blocks out the noise, not completely, of course, but hopefully it won't hinder you or the other speakers. So again, don't shout, but don't whisper,
Yeah.
and
And
don't get in trouble.
yeah, it's a headset. So I think the mic is close enough that
Yeah,
you'll be able to, like, even if, like Bailey said, even if the examiner can hear some background noise, they can still hear you clearly. So whatever you're saying. But yeah, that is something that you should keep in mind when you're practicing though. So maybe like have some light, annoying music, like music that you don't like playing in the background, or just play like, a noisy office video or something. And if you do that when you're preparing, you're kind of used to it, and that won't throw you off when you're recording your responses on test day.
yeah. Also, just do your best to focus in and not worry about what's going on around you, which I know is easier said, of
Yeah.
course. But when you have those headphones on, you're just, pretend you're talking to someone or just focus in. Try to ignore those distractions, but hopefully with the headphones, it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, I agree. Any other speaking questions?
Not seeing any others for speaking. There's one, um, if we want to go backwards, or we can save that till after.
Okay, maybe we'll save that for later. Let's move on to writing. Usually we get quite a few questions for writing. So the writing section is approximately 1 hour. That kind of depends on how long the input is for the integrated task. But approximately 1 hour, you've got two tasks. You start with the integrated task, and then you do the independent one. So the integrated task is very similar to the speaking integrated tasks. So you're asked to read 300 about a 300-word passage. It's on an academic topic, and it usually there'll be three arguments made in that passage, and then you will listen to a lecture, again very well structured. So that lecture will either support or sort of challenge the points made in the reading, and then you're asked to write a summary sort of comparing the points made in the reading and the listening, and you're given 20 minutes to write that summary. Once you've done that, you move on to task 2, which is your classic essay writing. That's the independent writing task. You get 30 minutes to write an essay, which should be a minimum of 300 words. So you have to write more than 300 words in 30 minutes. And the topic is usually some sort of an agree, disagree kind of essay. Again, it's marked by human examiners plus the marking software that they have, which is called e-rater. I think it's the same, right? Bailey, how does the marking for writing work?
Yep, exactly the same. It's a machine and at least two raters, two humans.
So yeah, you've got, yeah, you can rest assured that you're getting a score that's fair.
Yes. And if there are, like, if the two people don't agree, it goes to a third. That's from my knowledge, from my memory, that's how it works.
Right. Yeah, so it'll go to like an expert rater.
Right, exactly.
I can see a question here. Accumulating examples to write the independent writing is something that's challenging for me. How can I overcome this problem? That's again a very good question. So do you mean like you need to come up with ideas and explain them, develop those ideas, and that can be really difficult in 30 minutes? So what we recommend is two different things, okay? So first, whatever question that they're asking you is something that you probably already have an opinion on. So they're not going to ask you something super complicated or something very academic that you've never ever thought of. Even if you do get, a question that you've never ever thought of, you can think about your own experiences, your own opinion, Or you can think about somebody who's very opinionated in your life, and what if they have a strong opinion and you've ever heard them talk about it, you can just use the points that they have made. So you kind of can draw on your personal experience, or you can think about it in different terms. So you can think about it in terms of education, how it relates to work, or what consequences that particular aspect would have, whatever they're asking you about, how does that affect somebody's educational life, work life, personal life, mental health, normal health. So you can think about it in those terms as well. So you can at least get 2 or 3 different points to write about. Apart from that, I also think if you're practicing and if you're coming to live classes where you get to see what other people are saying, you kind of build that idea bank, where you're looking at what other people are saying, kind of thinking, oh, yeah, that's actually a great point. And then you can think of examples. And remember that you're not marked on the complexity of your ideas. It's just about how well you develop them. So your ideas don't have to be out of the box, right? You just have to think of the most obvious thing can also be like, a great point to write about. And sometimes those are the best things to write about because you can develop those ideas really well. So something that you might think is very obvious, use that. Use that point, give more examples, and it's fine. It doesn't have to be different in terms of your ideas. It has to be really well structured, and you should be able to develop your ideas really well. So I think that will probably help if you're not looking for something crazy out of the box. What do you think, Bailey?
Yeah, I definitely agree. Relating it to yourself always helps me. So you touched on that, just personal examples, personal experiences, or, something someone you know very well also says or thinks. And yeah, it's definitely okay if it's obvious that you don't need to, torture yourself to think of something too difficult. Definitely go with what makes sense.
And as an examiner, is that like what are you looking for in terms of the kind of ideas that students put forth?
Yeah, I mean, you do see some out of the box ideas occasionally, but often they are pretty similar because it's typically the first few things that you think of, and that's completely fine. The out of the box ideas work too, but sometimes they get a bit too crazy, and then it's hard to focus on their writing because of, these strange things. So, yeah, I definitely relate it to yourself, and you don't have to go too crazy. It can be pretty obvious.
I think we have a marking related question for you, Bailey. So Dinesh is asking, will writing a complex sentence add extra impact in writing evaluation? That's like,
Yes, but don't worry about you need to vary your sentence structure. So if every sentence is overly complex and you're just kind of using words that don't necessarily make sense together just to make a complex sentence, you don't want to do that. You varying your sentence structure, adding in some complex sentences with some simple sentences, that's definitely going to give you the full marks.
yeah, I think this comes from, I don't know if you've taken the IELTS before, Dinesh, but this is something that IELTS is very strict about. Um, with TOEFL, I don't think they're that strict. So they're not literally going to count, oh, this person used like 2 or 3 sentences, complex sentences, and 1 compound sentence or something like that. But yeah, like Bailey said, of course, you'll get, if you are able to use a complex sentence accurately, that will obviously give the examiner the impression that you really know your grammar. So adding 1 complex sentence, I think, should suffice, unlike IELTS where they're literally going to count. So yeah, if you can add some compound, complex, some simple sentences, if it's like a nice mix, like Bailey said, if there's a variety, you're okay. But like, don't use it if you're not sure.
Yes, absolutely. So that's actually exactly what the marking criteria is varied sentence structure. So adding a complex is great, but we definitely don't count things. So don't worry about IELTS marking. It's completely different, thankfully.
Yeah. But that was a really good question. Actually, I
Yeah.
think a lot of students really worry about that.
Yes. One other was, do we have any writing templates?
Uh, we have a structure. So we sort of tell you what you need to include in your introduction, what your 3 sentences in the introduction should be, what kinds of questions you should be asking yourself when you're writing the body paragraphs, and the conclusion as well. But we don't necessarily tell you what to write. What to write is up to you. How are you going to come up with those things? We help you with that. So, what kinds of questions you should be asking yourself? What should be the main purpose of that next sentence and how it should relate to the sentence before? All of that we'll help you with, and we'll make it super simple that you won't have to actually memorize sentences, which is actually a huge risk, isn't it, Bailey?
It is. I would not memorize sentences. It doesn't usually pay off. It doesn't usually fit correctly if you do that. Uh, Besides maybe a very general one about your introduction, but even that, I wouldn't do it.
And what happens if you feel like they've sort of learned an entire structure where they're just picking words from the topic and just placing them where necessary? What happens if you feel like that's what they're doing when you're marking?
We have to report it to the supervisor, and I believe the supervisor looks over it and it's a 0, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you risk getting a 0 because if somebody catches, if you've gone in with a bunch of your friends, you've all learned the same template, and if the same marker is going to be marking those, they will have to flag it. And if that happens, you all will end up getting a 0. So
Yeah.
do not use a template, please, because it's just not worth the risk. If you just follow a simple structure, it's easy enough. You'll end up getting a great score without risking getting a 0.
Yeah. And there is a structure, introduction, body, and if it's the independent summary. So of course, that's fine. It's just the memorized words that you maybe substitute one or two. And it's really easy for us to tell. We sit through and we do so many in a day that if it if you have sentences that make sense but not related to the actual topic, they'll know. So just don't do it. It's not worth it.
So we've got a question from Dinesh. If I get time, suppose 5 minutes at least, would it be a wise decision to write an extra paragraph or just to check the writing from top to bottom for correction? Oh, Dinesh is on fire. I love the questions you're asking.
We're very good.
um, I would say if you've written an introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and a conclusion, you definitely want to check it. Do not try and write something within the last 5 minutes because you are bound to make mistakes. Even if we try to write something within 5 minutes, we are going to make
Oh,
mistakes.
definitely.
So don't do that. Just go through everything. Check if you feel like you don't have 300 words, or if you do want to add something, maybe expand on the ideas that you've already mentioned because that will boost your topic development score. But if you are going to add an extra paragraph, I don't really think that's going to get you any kind of extra score, if any kind of extra points, if you haven't actually developed your first 2 paragraphs enough. So what we teach you in our live classes is to have one introduction, 2 body paragraphs, and a conclusion, and that is usually enough. That's conventionally how we write essays. So that should be enough. Don't try to cram another paragraph in just to fill time. What do you think, Bailey?
I definitely agree. 5 minutes is really probably a great, I mean, we say just to take 2 to 3 minutes to revise, but if you have 5 minutes for it, why not? And that's when you can expand a bit, add some extra, more complex words. into the paragraphs that are already there, and maybe add another sentence or two to those paragraphs. But an entire paragraph that's risky.
Oh, that's an
And
excellent point. Like
yeah,
adding complex sentences at the end. If you have 5 minutes, you have enough time to do that, That'd be great. That'll boost your language use score as well.
yeah. And when you go through and you're error correcting, don't just look for spelling and punctuation. Also look and see, are you using the same word or the same phrase over and over again? And if you are, can you replace some of those words? So that if you have 5 minutes, I think that's excellent, and use it to your advantage rather than trying to do more that might not quite be as good as what you already have. All right, we have one other writing question. What kind of test question usually comes in integrated writing?
What kind?
What kind of test question?
So the integrated writing, it always follows the same format. So like I said, you start off with a 300-ish word academic passage. Usually it'll be introducing some kind of an idea or an academic concept or a theory. And there'll be 3 paragraphs, not necessarily 3 paragraphs, but there'll be 3 main points in that reading passage, and it'll be talking about that, academic topic or concept. So it'll be making 3 points. Then when you listen to the lecture will be either supporting those 3 points made in the reading, or it'll be refuting or challenging those 3 points that you've read about. And then your task is firstly to identify those 3 topics. So it won't follow the same order. So let's say point A, B, and C in the listening might show up as C, A, B. So you kind of have to take notes for this task as well. When you're listening, you got to take notes. We ask you to take notes while you're reading as well. So that can help you listen out for those main ideas. And then you sort of have to figure out what the relationship between those is. Like, is it challenging those ideas in the reading, or are those arguments actually supporting the ideas mentioned in the reading? And then you kind of have to write a comparative summary, and we look at the structure for that as well. So again, you've got an introduction and 3 paragraphs um, comparing those 3 points. You don't need, so it's a summary, so you don't really need a conclusion. And basically you're scored on being able to include all those 3 points and how well you compare them with the listening. So that's always the pattern, but if you're asking for topics, they are wide ranging. So even though it is academic, it can be the hard sciences like biology or chemistry, nothing too complex. Like, they're very accessible that you can understand those concepts easily. There won't be any technical words that you don't understand. Even if they will explain them to you in the reading itself. Same with the lecture. But yeah, it can be anything. It can even be fine arts, different types of dances, painting styles. It's very hard to tell because it can be anything academic.
Yeah. And then does it normally say, does it strengthen, or do you have to figure that out?
Oh yeah, actually in the question itself, it says, um, yeah, the question says, how do the points made in the listening strengthen the arguments made in the reading? Or they'll say, how do they challenge the points made in the reading? Or how do they cast doubt on the points made in the reading? And a rare type is where they have problem solution. So how does the lecturer provide solutions to the problems mentioned in the reading?
Yeah. So it guides you, it gives you an
Yeah,
idea.
yeah, you actually don't have to sort of figure that out by yourself. You only need to sort of figure out which point relates to which point from the reading and the listening.
Right.
So Dinesh is asking which grammar books are good to build grammar skills for TOEFL writing. Again, a great question. You don't really need a book. We've got you covered on E2 language. So you can see this core skills section right here. It's got a ton of different mini grammar lessons. So level 1 is the lower level. So like if you're not quite a beginner, I think we're here at intermediate. So you start at level 1, which is intermediate. If you're having problems with getting specific, for example, when you're writing your essay, we've got a few videos to help you do just that, how to get more specific. And there are also activities attached to each video. So you can watch the video, do those activities, look at those examples, and that'll help you with your writing. And level 4 is the more advanced grammar level. So something like organizing ideas, coordinating ideas, creating logical outcomes, making complex predictions, reason sentence structures. All of these things will really help you improve your writing score. And if you need some more help with like organizing your ideas and connecting them, you can also check out the little grammar tab up here. So this one is very writing focused. The other ones are a little bit more general. So these are different lessons on how you can use different words and create sort of complex sentences. They don't make it very grammary. So they won't actually say what we're doing here, but they'll help you use words like however, in contrast, whereas. And these are basically the skills that you need, right? Like when you're writing, how are you going to use firstly, secondly, eventually to sort of sequence your response? So all of this is very useful, not only for writing, but I think also for speaking. So I hope that helps you out, Dinesh. You could get a grammar book if I'm being honest, but oh, this might be available for the Gold member. I think it's also if you are an Express, if you're on the Express package, you still have access to all of this. So that's our basic package. So if you get an Express package, you get access to all of everything that's in the TOEFL course. Plus you get access to 25 live classes. And if you get Express Plus, you also get access to the mini mock test, which is a timed simulation of the real test. And you also get access to the recordings of the live classes. So you do get access, and also those grammar courses as well. So you get access to like a whole lot. So you might want to check that out. And that might end up being cheaper than getting a book, to be honest. Okay, that's great. He says he'll check it out. All right, I think we can finally move on to general questions. So questions from any section of the test, just general questions about the TOEFL or our platform.
See, we do have one, and it's oh, where did it go? It just said, are the testing centers open? And I would say that definitely depends on where they're located, and you'll probably need to contact them directly because unfortunately we don't know about all of them, and with COVID being so different everywhere and the rules and laws being different, we don't really know what's open and what's not right now. I know some of them are.
Yeah.
I would assume some of them are not.
Let me just pull up that link. So if you go to this link right here, maybe you can post that on the YouTube thing as well. So if you just go to that link right there, all of the updates show up on that page. So the latest update was on 2nd December. So that's like from a couple of days ago. Oh, but in America, I think that's probably still today's 3rd there, probably. Yeah, so You can go and check, and they're pretty good with their updates actually. So they'll let you know as soon as centers open up or if they have to close down. So you can figure out which ones are open. They are still offering the at-home version of the test, so you can take the TOEFL at home. Before you do, though, make sure you've checked with your institution that you want to get into, that they'll be accepting those scores, because I know some institutions aren't accepting those scores. So yeah, better to check with them before you take the at-home version of the test.
And CJ said, I just joined the chat. Is this a paid service? So not today. This isn't. But yes, E2 language, we do have a free option and then a bunch of different packages, different price points. So depends what you're looking for.
Yeah, if you sign up for free, you still get access to some videos and some practice questions. And if you think that's enough and you're still feeling confident, you can obviously take the test after doing the free version of the platform, after using the free version of the platform. But if you feel like you need a little more help, you want to do more practice questions, like Dinesh says, if you want to have access to those grammar lessons, then yeah, you need to upgrade. And I think our cheapest package is about less than like 50 or 60 bucks. So even with that, you get access to the entire TOEFL course, all of those grammar lessons, 25 live classes, which are 1 hour long sessions, all access to all the recorded classes, which don't count towards those 25 live classes. So you get access to more than enough. That should be enough to help you prepare for the test. Would it be possible to increase the score by 30 marks in the second attempt of the exam? Oh, you mean overall? So out of 120, right? It depends on how much time you give yourself and how prepared you were the first time. So a lot of people go in without a lot of preparation, and it can be a little difficult because you don't know what's coming up and you don't really have a lot of time. You have like a minute at the most, for not even a minute for the speaking. You have a few seconds before you are asked to respond. In the listening and the reading section, you've also got limited time, like a minute, minute and a half to answer questions. And the writing also, 30 minutes for 300 words is not a lot. So I think if you are really well prepared, it is possible. But if it's an English language thing, if you think that you need to improve your English, that might take a little bit longer, but it's not impossible.
We have an integrated speaking question. I believe in the integrated speaking part, it is better to include most detail from announcement or lecture for response, right?
Sorry, what was that?
So to include most detail from the lecture. So you are, right, we're focusing on the lecture and how it relates to the reading. So I wouldn't say necessarily to include the most detail from the lecture, but you are focusing on the lecture and how it relates to the writing.
Is that for the speaking?
Integrated speaking.
Oh, yeah, I guess you're right, but you do want to include, like for task 2, you do want to tell them what was the announcement about. So if they're discussing an issue or a change, you want to let them know what that was, give them some background, which comes from the reading. And then you focus on the person's opinion of that issue, right? So yeah, that latter part does come from the conversation. And I think you would be focusing more on the conversation in that sense. And for task 3 as well, you will have to introduce the topic or the academic concept that you read about, and then sort of talk about what the professor said or how the professor expanded on that. And usually in the list, in the conversation or in the lecture in task 3, they make 2 main points which you need to include to get the score, to get like full marks for topic development. So yeah, you would have to include 2. you'd probably have to include 1 point from the reading and 2 points from the listening, if that's what you mean.
Yeah. Dinesh asks if the Institute will accept a score after their application deadline. That one you definitely have to contact the Institute individually. It's up to them. If it were up to us, it'd be fine. But unfortunately, not our decision.
Yeah, I'm not sure. It depends on the institution, actually. Like Bailey said, we can't really comment on that.
Yeah.
So get in touch with them and ask them if that'd be okay.
Hopefully they're a bit more flexible this year with everything going on, but
Yeah.
who knows?
Any other questions?
Not seeing any more.
All right, we're pretty much out of time anyway. So if you do have any questions, you can go to help.e2language.com and send us your questions there. I'll just pop that in the chat box here. So just head on over to help.e2language.com. Even if you want to know more about the platform and sort of find out what is included in the free package and what is included in all the other paid packages, you can just send us a message. Our support team is very helpful and they'll get back to you within 24 to 48 hours with answers to all your queries. And I think that's it from us. Do you want to say some final words, Bailey?
No, just thank you guys so much for joining us today. It's been fun. I love doing this together. It's great.
Oh, me too. And you guys asked some excellent questions, by the way. It was a pleasure answering those questions.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for joining us. And hopefully next month, right? January. Yes. I still can't believe it's December
It's
already.
December. Nuts. I need to buy presents.
Oh, I know. Oh, happy holidays, everyone, because I think this is the last AMA for this year.
It is. Wow. Oh, that's weird.
I know. But yeah, we'll be back in January and we'll see you then.
Weird. See you next year.
Bye.
Bye.